Greeting Earthlings! If you follow the channel, you know that we are resurrecting the Apollo communications system with original spacecraft and NASA ground equipment. After years of restoration work, we have voice,
this is Houston,
television, and the data uplink going. Over the last few episodes, we have completed the digital setup with the addition of the data downlink, the PCM telemetry as NASA called it. We are now receiving a steady stream of data from the spacecraft and can snoop on the astronauts' heartbeats. But more importantly, we are getting all of the spacecraft's data on our screens, including the telemetry from the Apollo guidance computer. We now feel like we are Houston controllers. Yes, it might be a bit more of a modern display, but as we showed in a previous episode, it is the very same data that the controllers would have seen, organized in pretty much the same way. The first time we got it going, we were quite amazed by the amount of data that we were getting back, and we were just glad that our spacecraft diski and the data screens matched perfectly. But we are past our initial shock, and in this episode, we are becoming more ambitious flight controllers. Simply observing data does not cut it anymore, and with our confidence in our restore setup growing quickly, we are eager to become hands-on flight controllers. So in this episode, we are going to attempt to upload a navigation update from the ground, something that was done quite frequently during the flight. I counted no less than 55 times on this Apollo 15 list of data uploads during the mission. You see, all the way back from my childhood, growing up during the space race glued to my television set, I had always wondered how the controllers were interacting with the spacecraft from their complicated consoles. What did the consoles do? Which buttons did they press? How did the data actually make it from the Houston computers across the globe to the remote tracking stations and to the spacecraft? How was it formatted? How did they check it? Well, we are finally going to find out and replicate the upload for real using our NASA comms equipment. So hang on, because it involves far more computers, controllers, consoles, buttons, and transmission links than I had ever imagined. Alright, it's a new week and we have a new telemetry screen. Tell us what you've done.
So I've modeled another MOCR telemetry screen. This one is the uplink status screen, basically. So it has the diski, which we saw last time, but it also has the uplink buffer and then a lot of state information related to uplink status.
Right, and this one is kind of important because that's the one they watched when they were doing an update from the ground.
Yeah, they watched this like a hawk.
And it's this controller's screen right here. We'll need several other videos to explain the many methods screens were generated and called up. You're actually not looking at a data terminal, but at a processed video feed of a camera filming a terminal located below us on the first floor, which was housing 5 giant IBM 360 computers. For now, just assume that you could call up a video feed with the screen you wanted, using the thumb rollers under the display. Right now, we are receiving telemetry, bits down there, but the AGC is not turned on purpose. So we can show you what happens when we turn it on.
Yeah. So, let me turn this thing on.
Alright.
Okay, AGC coming up.
And here you go. Ta-da! And we now are receiving the data from the AGC, which is a frame within the frame of the normal data.
Right. And this we're not receiving because this is only sent down when you're in the update mode.
Right. So what Mike is saying is that the AGC only sends data that's relevant to the current program it is running. Right now it is executing the idle program P00, affectionately called Pooh, which is sending most of the data for the screen that we explored in the previous episode, including the full diski display. But it is not yet sending some data for our new screen because we have not yet entered the data update program. The column on the right, which we are going to watch closely, are the update buffers. They have not come to life yet, as indicated by the purple color. So we're going to try to do a state vector upload.
We're going to do a state vector upload, yeah. Change the orbit that the spacecraft thinks it's in. Basically, it's going to be in orbit, kind of. It's on a re-entry trajectory, actually. But we're going to change its velocity to put it into actual orbit.
Right, and they did that during the mission. The spaceship through the inertial platform kind of knows where it is, but if they have better data from the ground,
which they almost always do, the ranging is really good.
Right, they'll update a better one and correct it. So we're going to do that correction, which I can't remember how many times they did in Apollo 15.
Pretty frequently.
Like tens of times, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to upload it from our tape, which is really a test system. They would have uploaded it directly from a computer, of course.
Right, and it would have been much faster.
Right, and then we can play the role of the flight controller, which will watch the right screen. So we'll be watching that screen. And okay, let's try that. But first, we have to do our upload. So first things first, we have to generate our upload data. That operation would be performed by the active IBM 360 currently supporting the flight down on the first floor in the Real-Time Computer Complex, RTCC for short. The upload request would be done verbally by the flight controller. So we pick up our phone, or maybe we speak over our control loop and call our support controller buddies in the RTCC, sitting at a bunch of consoles just outside of the computer room, of which there is very little footage. Usually you see this, the big IBM 360 Model 75 console. But that would be for an IBM engineer monitoring the health of the machine, not for a NASA controller. Our behind-the-scene controller buddies are in the support room just outside. We want to pay special attention to the computer command controller sitting at console 49A. This very guy and this very console right here. Here is a view of the console that I painstakingly reconstructed with the button configuration matching that of the Apollo 15 flight. Many of its button panels are common to most consoles. The thumb wheel selector for the screens on panel 9, the blinky communications panels that selects which loop you are listening in or talking to on panels 4 and 11, which by the way tells us that this console is manned by 2 people. There is the status report panel 3 that will light up an indicator of the same color on your supervisor's console, telling him at a glance if you're good and can be left alone, green, require attention, yellow, or if he better calls you right now, red. But we are mostly interested in panels 7, 8 and 12 at the bottom. There is one per vehicle, one for the CMC, the command module computer, one for the SLV, the Saturn launch vehicle, and one for the LGC, the LEM guidance computer. On panel 7, you can spot a button that says CMC-CSM navigation. That's the one we want. It's for updating the state vector of the command module on the command module computer, the CMC. But back to our flight controller. He is now talking to us, telling us that he wants a CSM nav update for the CMC and which remote tracking stations we should upload it to. We now will talk to our other buddies within the actual computer room, which have regular computer consoles and will manually enter the info and run the program to generate the data for the upload. When it's ready, we will be alerted on our console by the CSM makeup occupied light. The makeup area is just a fixed area in memory where each upload data is stored once it's ready. The top half of the CMC-CSM navigation button should also have illuminated. We now can retrieve our upload by pressing that button. Now things are getting interesting. A load number appears on our projection display. It's a unique number assigned to our upload. These projection displays, by the way, are used all over the consoles, in clocks in particular, and they look like this. But back to our load number. The 2 first digits depend on the type of upload. In our case, it's a CSM nav update, so it starts with 00. The next 2 digits are just sequential. Here we assume it's our 15th nav update. The remote site lights should also have illuminated. They bear the code names for the tracking stations with the big antennas all around the globe. Here we are planning on using the large antenna sites at Madrid, Spain, and then, if needed, the next one at Honeysuckle in Australia. Curiously, on this panel, it uses the Canberra site for that acronym. It's HSK on most other consoles. On our high-definition video screen, we should also see the details of our nav update. Here you have the xyz, the position vector, and the x.y.z, the velocity vector, and the time at which this vector was valid, all in floating point format. The next column over to the left has the same data, but in AGC octal format. These are the numbers that will be uploaded into the AGC's memory, starting at the memory address found in the @ field. The vehicle ID is a binary field specifying whether this is a CM state vector or a LEM state vector, and whether it's in Earth or Moon coordinates. The index field is how many words are in this update, and finally, the top tells us that this update will be loaded using a verb 71 in the DSKY, as we shall see in a minute. Meanwhile, the requesting controller will pull up the same screen and verify the data. If all is good, he will give us a verbal go-ahead to proceed to the next step. We will now press the Transfer Enable button, which will put the data in the output buffer of the IBM 360. The CSM Transfer Occupied light should come on, after which we will press the green Transfer button. That will send the data over to yet another gaggle of large computers that forms what was called CATS, spelled CCATS, an acronym for Communications, Commands and Telemetry System. It was comprised of 3 large UNIVAC 494 computers. They were in a second large computer room next to the RTCC. The UNIVAC 494s had very strong serial I/O capabilities, having 4 500 kilobit per second serial channels and 12 250 kilobit per second serial channels each. No wonder they were used for real-time digital communications processing. CATS took care of all the digital communications to and from the spacecrafts. Assuming the load transfer went well, one of the UNIVAC 494s should have answered with a Command Load Acceptance message, or CLAM for short. This will illuminate the CLAM light of happiness on our console down at the RTCC. The command is now in the belly of the UNIVAC 494, and our job at console 49A is over for now. Meanwhile, at the CuriousMarc's headquarters, we don't have our IBM 360 running quite yet. So we are going to use the next best thing to calculate our load data, a Windows computer running Python. Experience won't be quite as glorious, but that should do the trick. Okay, so now imagine we're back in Houston and we are going to do an update for the computer. So that's what the screen is supposed to be. And it's a verb 71.
Yeah, how many words on the transfer?
Which address it goes into.
Yep.
Whether it's for the LEM or the
command module, yeah. Both vehicles track the state vector of both vehicles, so they know where each other are.
And then you have your x, your y, your z, and your x dot, y dot, z dot, your basically your position and your speeds.
Yep.
Right? And they are in this weird format in octal, but it's really a float that they have over here. And for that, I have my little Python calculator. I'm not a good Python programmer, but I tried. So all this little script does is convert state vectors back and forth from floating point representation to the AGC's internal octal representation, essentially moving back and forth between these two columns. That way we can calculate the upload octal contents for new state vectors and extract and decode them from the AGC memory dumps. The arithmetic manipulation is only a few lines long, but somewhat unusual as the AGC's internal float representation and scaling is quite quirky. I'll briefly flash it by for those interested. Mike, you downloaded as a reference this state vector.
Yeah, I took the state vector out of the RAM of a computer. A friend flew a short little mission for us and gave us a memory dump of the computer, and I pulled the state vector out of it, and then we're going to modify that.
This is just the x, y, z values in octal, and it's this position and this speed. And what you've done, you have changed the minus 7100 to minus 7900.
Right.
Give it a good kick.
A very good kick, yeah.
800 meters per second. So we're going to go into a much higher orbit.
Yep.
Or it's going to think it's a much higher orbit, which translates into this. Alright, we are in lockstep with NASA. We have generated our load data. Back in Houston, we now shift our attention to the consoles in the CCAT support room. Once again, it's a room next to the UNIVAC computer room proper. This time we'll pay attention to consoles 73A and 74A, which together form a very large console which we can spy in this rare footage. It is manned by 3 operators whose only job is to assist the flight controller in getting the freshly arrived command uploaded to the spacecraft. The left side of console 73A is manned by the Command Load Controller, or CLC. His job is to send the upload from the UNIVAC 494 to the remote tracking sites, called RSCC in NASA jargon, for Remote Site Computer Center. Here is our glorious console and the CLC is sitting at the left. How the buttons exactly work involves a bit of guesswork. Hopefully I got it right. If you were the controller behind that console, please let us know in the comments. Anyhow, we first retrieve the load from the CCAS computer by entering its number in panel 6. The load number appears on panel 7 and we should now be able to see it on our screen. We can now use panel 3 and 4 to manually select which of the tracking sites to send it to. We also have 2 more buttons for options. If the load disable button is on, the load will be transmitted, but it will be marked as disabled, prevented from further transmission to the spacecraft. That will prevent inadvertent upload until that restriction is manually lifted, an extra protection I suspect. The TTY inhibit is another interesting option. Normally, a backup version of the command would also be transmitted to the remote site via teletype at far lower speed, should the direct computer-to-computer 2.4 kilobits per second modem link fail. The command could then be loaded into the remote computer from the received teletype punched tape. Our red button disables TTY transmission, most likely to save time and tape, maybe during tests, as it would have taken forever to send an upload via teletype. So once we have chosen our remote sites, we press the initiate button and off goes the load, retrying up to 3 times every 2 seconds if necessary, as you can see from the second and third try lights. But it doesn't go to the remote site computer directly. First, it goes to yet another bunch of UNIVAC 494s at the Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. Goddard was the central node for the entire MISFIN, the Manned Space Flight Network. You can still see Goddard's UNIVAC 490, the predecessor to the 494 and which was used during the Gemini missions, at the System Source Museum in Maryland. I went there to see it, and it's quite a machine. Anyhow, Houston and Goddard UNIVACs were linked by a 50 kilobit per second connection, which at the time was just crazy bandwidth. It used giant 303C modems that required 12 phone lines per modem. The data transmissions were also protected against transmission errors by a cyclic redundancy check, or CRC. This took further dedicated hardware in more racks called polynomial buffer terminals just to calculate and decode the polynomial checksums on either side. Once at the Goddard's UNIVAC 494, the upload was retransmitted to its final remote site destination over a 2.4 kilobit per second modem. This was the military spec Bell 205B modem using 4 leased phone lines. In total, there were 3 2.4 kilobit per second modems linking Goddard to each remote site, 1 for command uplink and 2 for telemetry downlink, for a total of 12 leased phone lines per site. You can spot the 3 modems in this picture of honeysuckle at the top of the right rack. Finally, at the remote site, the recipient computers were yet other UNIVACs, this time the smaller model 642B. There were 2 642Bs at each site. One 642 handled the uplink commands while the other one handled downlink telemetry. But computer debauchery didn't stop here. The remote sites were also equipped with 2 more UNIVACs, this time 1218s. They handled antenna control and the local data console and telemetry displays. So you're with me so far, right? The flight controller at console 12 made a request to console 49A, who calculated a command on the IBM 360, who transmitted it to the UNIVAC 494, which was picked up by console 73A, who transmitted it to Goddard using the Bell 303C wide bandwidth modem, who transmitted it to the UNIVAC 642B at the remote site using the Bell 205B 2400 baud modem, together with a teletype backup. So after having used an impressive pileup of consoles, computers and comms hardware, the upload should have made it to the remote tracking site. We should get a nice green site validation light confirmation on the console, and our job at the CLC controller's position is done. Meanwhile, back at CuriousMarc's headquarters, we don't have UNIVAC 494s and 642s, but we do have teletypes. So we are going to use the backup paper tape method to transmit our data. And since our uplink data test box takes raw UDL commands, we'll do a few more processing steps that were usually performed by the UNIVAC. We are going to transform all of our upload data into DISCI keystrokes, add a verb 71 preamble and a verb 33 postamble. We'll then transform these key presses into binary UDL commands, one per keystroke, that our updata link box will be able to transmit to the spacecraft. Alright. The command we send are key presses on the DISCI.
Yes, yeah, that's the only thing you can send to the computers is DISCI key presses, basically.
So we're going to send all this DISCI key presses. First one is reset, then we're going to do the verb 71.
Yep, that gets you into the update program.
Right. This has to be sent in commands, in UDL commands, and I have a little program to do that, which I run over here. That's my series of commands. This is how I encode it symbolically on the... These are the numbers that are going to show on our UDL when we load the tape. And then you have to code the tape, and the tape is this. It's actually a binary code on it. So now this file is the punch code. Now we do this. Alright. It was bigger than I thought it would be.
It's quite a large tape.
Yeah.
It's not that many key presses, but to encode it for the UDL, you have to have the key press, and then the inverted key press, and then the uninverted key press, and it just adds up.
18,
Position,
16 bit.
XYZ position, XYZ velocity, time.
Okay, woohoo! Did it. Alright. And this is a tape of DISCI key presses. That's just what it is. We'll actually have fun and run this into the machine and see if we can do an update, a state vector update. Alright, we now have a teletype tape that we can simply walk over to our setup. We are in lockstep with NASA again. Now that the upload sequence has arrived at the remote tracking station, it is time to uplink it to the spacecraft. This final phase will be directed manually by the flight controller himself, using a deliberate step-by-step procedure while carefully watching the upload telemetry screen. But in order for the flight controller to do that, the people down at CATS must first establish a live connection between the flight controller's console and the remote site computer. That is now the job of the real-time command controller in CATS, sitting at the right side of console 73A. The RTC should verify the remote site's radiocom status using panels 19 and 20. Note that on Apollo, only USB was used, UHF was for Gemini. One of the most important panels is panel 17 with 3 rotating magnetic indicators. They display the next 3 stations that will have the vehicle in sight. The top indicator will light up when they have acquired the spacecraft. In our case, it should show Madrid, Honeysuckle and Goldstone, the 3 main deep space antennas. Finally, panel 16 has one of the most glorious array of buttons of any Apollo console. It is a giant switch matrix used to connect the flight controller console with the remote site. Footage of it is equally rare, but I found one short sequence. You can also sort of see it in the console footage. On the column at the left, it has all the consoles in the mocker that can send commands to the spacecraft, of which there are comparatively few. Right now we are concerned with Guido, who requested the nav update. So we'll check that his requested remote station has acquired lock on the spacecraft and press the appropriate button to connect him. That should connect his console to Madrid. The controller is all set. It's all up to him now. So finally, it's our big moment. We are Guido, the guidance officer, sitting at console 12, way up in the front row, so we never get any good camera angle in the footage. We have quite a beautiful console though. Hopefully I'll give you a full tour in a future video. But for now we are just going to be concerned with some panels on the right side. You'll have recognized the load number panel 23 and its attendant entry keypad on panel 17. We should have entered our load number at this point and verified that on the screen. On panel 16 we can now verify the status of our communications with the spacecraft. USB should be on, we should be in load mode, carrier should be on, and the FC light should have been turned on for us by our friend at console 73A, meaning that we are now in flight controller mode, controlling the remote site UNIVAC 642B. We should make triple sure that we are targeting the right vehicle, pressing vehicle 4, which is the CSM. On panel 15 we have super detailed AGC-COM status via return telemetry, mirroring several activity lights from the disky, such as the uplink activity and the computer activity lights. We better make sure that the astronauts don't have the up telemetry block switch enabled, which they had most of the time, so the Russians would not inadvertently transmit something. KKK fail has nothing to do with the elimination of the Ku Klux Klan, but means that the check for the disky key code, which uses a triple key anti-key key as a transmission check scheme, has failed, and the key command has been rejected. With everything checked, we are now ready to begin the uplink procedure, which will start by bringing up the CSM upload monitor screen. Now we'll press verb initiate. The remote UNIVAC 642 should send the verb preamble, which consists of a reset key press followed by verb 71 key presses, the required verb to initialize the AGC for receiving a CSM nav update. We should get a green site validation light indicating that our commands have been received and executed by the remote computer. We then check on our screen that verb 71 showed up on the disky in the spacecraft, and then we confirm the verb command by manually pressing E, the enter key on panel 18, which, as you probably have noticed, is a disky keypad. To send our E to the spacecraft, we need to press RTC initiate, which stands for real-time command initiate. Our enter key press command has now been sent. The AGC should have executed verb 71 and should be ready to receive the nav upload data. Let's try this for ourselves at CuriousMarc's headquarters. Alright, so now we moved. We are at Honeysuckle or Madrid or Goldstone, and this data has been transmitted to us, and over there they have a big computer, but here we just have the UDL test system. But that's what is going to send the commands. Do you have the UDL working over there?
UDL is on.
Okay. And I'm going to have UDL. Maybe I'm going to have a UDL light. I don't know.
Yeah, the first key you send, you should get an uplink activity light on
We'll
the
see.
disky.
What depends what I had in there before. Isn't that good? 00. It's synced up. This is going to be a reset, and I think it's going to do uplink activity.
I think the reset actually turns uplink activity off. So it would be the first key after the reset that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
Reset,
computer activity light
do
flashed
anything.
briefly.
Verb.
So uplink activity light is on.
Okay. Now it should be 70.
Yep. And we have a 7 in telemetry.
Okay, so I see it. The 71 made it to the spacecraft. It's over there, and you see it over here too.
Yep. On our disky display on the ground, it's
Okay.
also reading 71.
So at this point, I am the flight controller. I have the screen in front of me, and I'm going to press enter manually from the console. It's going to be sent from Madrid, but the order to send it is going to come directly from a person in Houston.
Right.
So the enter came through.
Okay, so we're in program 27 now, which is the update program.
Okay, and now I am going to do it mostly in one fell swoop. It's going to actually I can do the first ones slowly, right?
Yeah.
Notice that our input buffers have come alive on our display now and are showing in white. From Houston, it would be really simple from there. Press Load Initiate and the whole upload should proceed in a few seconds. After checking the input buffers for correctness, there is one more manual step. You have to manually send a verb 33 from the console keypad, check that, then an enter to commit the update to memory. Done. But at CuriousMarc's headquarters, we are novice controllers, so we are going to proceed a lot more slowly. Next one should be 21E, which is the 21 enter, which is the number of bytes of words I'm going to send. 2, 1, enter. It got it. Do you see it?
Yep, so we saw that go into register 1, and now it's in the first word of the uplink buffer.
Okay. Success, and I saw it come on the disk key over there. The next one is going to be 1501, it's the address where it has to go.
Yep, it's 1501 is the address of the uplink state vector.
1501, enter. Okay, got it.
Yep, and it's in our uplink buffer.
Next one is just 1, which means it's for this command module in Earth orbit.
Right.
In Earth coordinates.
So it'll show up in register 1 on the disk key as it's typed in, and then it'll show up in the third word of the uplink buffer after it's entered.
That's what the 1. Enter. Make it.
There it is. Yep.
It made it. So the next one is the X position, first word. 77764. 7776. 4. Enter. You make it.
Yep.
The next one should be 47515. 47515. Enter. Okay. There you go. You see all the data is being transferred, and we can confirm that it goes here.
So you can watch it go into the buffer here. You can also see how far we are into the load with the counter there.
And the reason it's so slow is because we are doing it from tape, and the tape reader is horrendously slow. So in reality, we go much faster.
16, 17.
You tell me when
you're on 20, so you should probably stop it.
Okay, where am I?
You're partway through the last word.
Okay. To be 24735.
7,
5. Enter. Okay, and at this point, the automated sequence stops, and I'm the flight controller, and I look at this, and I make sure that all the numbers are correct in the memory.
All of this should be exactly what we expect it to be.
Right. And we have an indication of 330 on the disk key.
Yeah, which basically means we're at the end of the uplink.
Right. And so now, once this is correct, I have to enter verb 33 by hand from Houston.
Yep.
Here I'll do it from the tape because I have no other way to do it. So I'll do a verb 33.
Okay. Verb 33 came down.
Okay, and then it's going to be enter at the other end. Enter. Your work?
Yep, we're back into foo.
Alright, and now, you know what we didn't do? We didn't show our vector before we updated it.
So I did graph. You can see what happened to our state vector here.
Oh, something happened.
Well, you can ignore all of this bit, but this is what we just changed.
Okay.
We pushed the x velocity by a little bit.
Alright, so how would we know what our orbit is?
Yeah, so we can't display the position and velocity directly on the disk key. There's not a noun for that, but we can do verb 82, which is like an orbital parameters display. This is going to show us our apogee, our perigee, and the time of free fall, which is going to be meaningless currently.
The time of, what is the time of free fall?
Time of free fall, which would be interesting if you're on the suborbital trajectory.
Oh, is how much time you have before you hit?
Sort of, yeah.
So what are those numbers then?
So the apogee is 2,095.1 kilometers. Perigee is 85.5 kilometers.
Okay.
So
And
quite elliptical as far as orbits
right.
go.
CSM navigation update, take 2. So this key resets and show us our orbit.
Alright, so we're going to do verb 82. Just accept the defaults here. And this is showing us our apogee and perigee, where our apogee is 231.3 kilometers and our perigee is negative 14.9 kilometers.
So because we are going to re-enter at this point.
Right. So I'm going to have to exit out of this for you to do that update.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so we're back to poo.
Apollo whatever, I'm going to send you a state vector update. It worked? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Verb 71. 1. 1, and then I'll So the astronauts would actually see that, the update on their disk keys?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's quite spectacular to watch it flash by when you're doing like a full update. I mean, even this is pretty fast compared to what you do when you're manually punching something in. But it goes real fast when you're doing it from the RTCC.
677, then we have 24735, that's our last bit of data, and then the verb 33. Enter. Alright. And check your orbit.
Check our orbit now.
Which have changed.
82. And we're no longer suborbital.
Yeah, so good relief is that our state vector was just erroneous.
Yep.
Actually, our state vector was good because we were just flying a re-entry.
Right.
So, but just if it was erroneous, then you could update it, or if it was imprecise, you could refine the precision, which is actually what they did most of the time.
Exactly, yeah.
Woohoo! And so that's really how it worked. It's really the interaction of the updataling and the PCM telemetry, which is quite complicated. Alright, well, I'm glad you're in safe orbit. And just as I was getting ready to release this video, I stumbled upon this footage, supposedly from Apollo 17's launch. There! Did you see it? What the? Yes! This is a rarely seen Guido console close-up. And guess what they have on the screen? Yes! This is the upload screen. And guess what they are doing? Yes, they are checking the upload buffer values versus the load screen that they have on the left before committing to a verb 33. Wow, we caught them midway into an upload, maybe a nav one. So this is definitely not during the launch. Nevertheless, this is why we do restoration, folks, instead of gawking at stuff in museums. If we had not done it for real, we would not have understood how this whole process worked, which is both so complicated and so elegantly simple. Broken down in consoles that just do a few things, every step double checked by real people that talk to each other. Complex and minimalistic at the same time. And that's how they made it to the moon. Now we know. And although we are coming towards the end of this restoration, I would say that for me, this simple upload demo, which exercised every part of the system we had worked on, was easily worth all the years of restoration effort. We'll see you in the next episode for more adventures.